Hello, my name is Dallas Paul, and I'm doing a power slide on PTSD, and this is my PowerPoint. PTSD is a invisible disease that affects many veterans. Um, it's hard to deal with. Veterans have a lot of issues. A lot of veterans commit suicide. We don't know how to deal with life. It's basically hard to get back into the civilian world. Um, PTSD stands for post traumatic stress disorder. Um, it affects millions of people, not only military people, but also civilians. It can range from anything from a traumatic childhood to a car wreck to an injury in combat. Many of the victims of PTSD and their families, mostly the families, don't understand the true meaning of what PTSD goes for, and they don't understand how to live with their significant other that's dealing with PTSD. Post traumatic stress syndrome is an issue that lies very deep inside and is a very hard disease to deal with. Um, it is a very mental and psychological disorder, and I can say for myself, I suffer from it through both childhood and combat issues. That it is hard to sleep at night and is also hard to deal with life on some days. Some days are really good, some days are really bad. It's the way you wake up and you deal with how your circumstances are. Um, I can say, honestly, both of my marriages are ruined because of me, of my PTSD, and the way I act and the words I use and my actions. I will probably never be the same as I was when I was a normal kid in junior high. PTSD takes a lot from you. The nightmares, the drama, it's all there. It's something that a lot of veterans are told to suck it up and drive on, which it's hard to do, but that's the way we're taught. We can go through 5 combat zones and be told to suck it up and drive on because we're military, we're supposed to be strong, and we deal with it, and we wake up next day and deal with their next issue. On my PowerPoint, um, it's talking about the medical definition of PTSD, which is post traumatic stress syndrome. It's an anxiety disorder that can develop after a person is exposed to one or more traumatic issues, with major stress, sexual assault, warfare, or other threats to a person's life. Symptoms include disturbing recurring flashbacks, avoidance or numbing memories of the event, and hyperarousal or continue for more than a month after the occurrence of a traumatic event. 60% of men and 50% of women nationally are known to have PTSD some sort. 8 million people have experienced PTSD in their lifetime. And the numbers have risen. For one, we've been at war since 1998, not counting Desert Storm or Vietnam. We have countless soldiers coming back that do not admit they have PTSD. You have women that have been sexually assaulted that do not admit that they've been assaulted. You have domestic violence that's PTSD. You have kids that are raised up in a household and they were beat as kids and they don't come forward. So the numbers are probably a lot higher. Some PTSD is worse than others, but all PTSD really should be treated the same. It's hard to admit that you have it because it's admitting on the veteran status, it's admitting that you have a weakness. And usually the PTSD leads to some kind of addiction and some kind of illness. And it usually leads to marriage problems, family problems, work problems, so on. My next slide. Basically talks about being depressed, the anxiety, the nervousness, being withdrawn, and avoiding crowds. I can tell you still to this day, I do not like crowds. My anxiety level is through the roof. I'm definitely depressed because my wife is in Oklahoma and I live here in Wichita. And she felt that that was the best way for her to deal with my anxiety, my issues, because I have not been the perfect husband. And I took some steroid shots, which brought my PTSD back full blown. And for a lack of a better word, she did not feel safe at home. My nightmares come back, my military experience come back. I still cannot sleep at night. In and out of the hospital, I have no support. I'm here in Wichita by myself, so the post-traumatic stress syndrome sits on an anxiety and a depression that not only messes with your mind, but it also affects your family and the people around you. It is an invisible disease, and I wish it would be more well known. And that's basically saying that it leads to drug addiction, alcoholism. The proactive ways to help with PTSD is counseling, group therapy, exercise, medications for anxiety, and I've been researching about service dogs. Service dogs are very popular now among PTSD. They got service dogs that actually help out with PTSD. They're really good for especially returning veterans that are coming back from the war zone. It's basically a companion, and it's kind of like a guide dog, but it helps you out. Basically because you got someone there 24/7. In the conclusion, if more people learn the signs and symptoms of PTSD, they're likely to seek treatment. It's hard for someone to admit that they have a problem, especially some kind of traumatic disorder. The veterans returning back were trained to suck it up and drive on. And then you have kids and women and other people in the civilian world that experience a traumatic disorder and they don't know how to deal with it. And they're kind of left by themselves. They're left alone. They feel alone. They seclude themselves. They have flashbacks, nightmares. I mean, it affects 60 million people in the U.S. 60% of women, 50% of men, which is probably low. It's probably more about 75%, including the sun pose. So that is my conclusion. My name is Dallas Ball. Thank you very much. And have a great day. Thank you. Bye.